Hello and welcome to the WrestlePurists channel. We've got something a little bit special today. I'm of course joined by Backup Hangman, who many of you already know, who are familiar with this channel, who has also brought along a very special guest, and he will be leading the pod today. Very special guest, who you can see on screen now. We're going to have a talk ahead of his huge match with Claudio Castagnoli for the Ring of Honor World Champion. I'm of course talking about the Ring of Honor World Champion, Jonathan Gresham. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. We got the reigning, defending, undisputed champ here. I wanted to bring John, ladies and gentlemen, because just personally speaking, this Death Before Dishonor card and the show on paper looks to be absolutely excellent, and it's a very important event, I think, because this is one of those events that's going to dictate where Ring of Honor under Tony Khan goes in the future, because now we have everything in place with the pieces that he wants in place. We have the guys who are clearly going to be the key players for the brand going forward. The card is put together. We've built some of it on television and now. So it's just a really important event, a pivotal one. And so who better to talk to than the guy who's been carrying the Ring of Honor banner for a couple of years now. John, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. I'm a fan of your work. I'm very interested in where this whole thing goes. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is just you clearly, like when for those who watch Ring of Honor, like the product, and they see John when he speaks, I'm not sure where the character stops and where it's really John in terms of how he speaks about Ring of Honor, because it seems like you genuinely pride yourself on carrying this brand. You know what I mean? Like it seems like you really take it serious, embodying the brand and keeping it alive. You made sure to really keep that alive when the shutdown happened, when it comes to you defending your championship in other promotions, whether it be Impact or other places. You made sure to always mention it and mention just the general ethos of Ring of Honor. Like I remember your promos in Impact when you would talk about fighting with honor and this and that, and preserving just the purity of the sport and keeping it a sport rather than just kind of blending into what wrestling is now. So I guess my first question is just how much of that is, I guess, really how you feel about what you do with this Ring of Honor stuff?
All of it, really, man. Is just is what I kind of preach and teach when I working with like younger talents, and is what kind of helped me get to where I am. A lot of people would tell me, like old heads would be like, with promos, to really get it over, you have to like believe what you say. If you think you're the best, you really need to believe it. Blah blah blah. And so I kind of used that, and I was like, well, what is my voice as a wrestler, And it took a little while to kind of figure it out, but it's almost like the conversation of what's going on now with wrestling, and then old school wrestling. It's a conversation that people have like every day in wrestling circles. So I thought, why not be the guy that kind of instigates these arguments, these conversations, but like I'm on one side of the fence. So it's an argument that people already want to have. And people have it all the time, like I said. So I decided to take the route of the old school and just rename it Pure. You know what I mean? So, and what I really liked about the character was it could be taken as heel or face, just depending on, how you're looking at it. So I thought it had a lot of different layers, It was really interesting for me to play around with it. And a lot of things just kind of happen in the moment or the day before, the day of. But to answer your question, yeah, man, it's just like what I believe. Like, you got all of these different like genres of movies, but now when I watch wrestling, it's like there really isn't anything different. When you look from WWE to AEW to Impact, there's not a real difference to me. Just the aesthetic of like how it's presented to you. Otherwise, like there's not a different rule set. When you look at like UFC and then like what K1 was, like they would go like balls out and like K1, but a lot of that stuff isn't like allowed in UFC. So it's just like, I think a change of rule set even if it's just a division or just the company as a whole. I just think something needs to change. And so that was like a genuine thing that I was trying to push in Ring of Honor to help differentiate like Ring of Honor from everything else. I truly believe that ROH had the potential to do that, but I just believe the people in charge are, I don't know, too afraid to just try something
Go all
different.
the way with it.
Yeah. It's just like, this thing works. Let's just keep doing it.
You know what's the funny thing about it, John? It's interesting you say that, because some people would argue, like, you know, when people would say, like, for example, AEW is pro wrestling and WWE is sports entertainment, you know, some people would argue, like, most mainstream pro wrestling in the United States is sports entertainment to a degree because of just the nature of how the programming is put together, right? And regardless of where you lie on that, I think you bring up a very interesting point about presentation and also about, you know, babyface and heel alignment. Because, bro, I was actually thinking about this just independently, because I was obviously having just one of my stupid Twitter arguments with people or just conversations, and someone said basically like, well, you know, Gresham's gimmick is a heel gimmick, and in my head I'm like, it could be either or, because here's the thing, you know, I think it's a very virtuous trait to say, you know, I want to wrestle without interferences or plunder or weapons getting involved. I want to win the right way. I want to wrestle purely for the sport of wrestling rather than just because I hate my opponent. You know, wrestling could be a beautiful thing, and celebrating wrestling by having two good wrestlers have a good wrestling match where the it's one on merit and skill rather than because one guy cheated or one guy did this and that. You know, technically that's a virtuous trait. That's something that's good natured and well intentioned. But it can also be spun. It can also be spun to like, I just think I'm better than you guys at what I do here, and I'm just more skilled. And so my style of wrestling is just superior to the way you guys do things. And I'm going to show it by tapping out your faves. I'm going to show it by basically outmaneuvering them. I'm not going to do nothing flashy or crowd pleasing. I'm going to just fucking give you a Mahi straw cradle and beat you. And there's nothing you can do about it because I'm better than you at it. You know, you can do it either way.
You definitely can. But the number one thing, well, there's two things that really kind of go into it. One is just, to me, a fact that for something like that to get over, the individual has to be given the stage. And oftentimes there's a lot of people in locker rooms that can do these different things, but the promoters don't really give them the stage to do it. So it's best to just get in line. And, you know, to be honest, a lot of guys are just happy with collecting a paycheck, you know, and just, you know, a lot of guys can't do anything else. Or they spent so many years trying to become a wrestler, they finally got to TV, and it's like, I'm just going to ride this out for as long as possible. I might not be doing what I enjoy or love, but I'm getting paid, you know? Some people are okay with that, and some people aren't. So, but yeah, man, it's just what you're saying is true. But I think you got to think about, like, I'm 34. So there's people like 12 years old right now that don't know the wrestling. How old are you guys?
I'm in my mid-20s.
Yes,
okay.
Mid-20s.
Mid-20s. Okay, so you guys kind of remember like the Attitude Era then, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you got to think about, there's a whole demographic of people that think wrestling is what they see every week from NXT and then like current AEW stuff.
Yeah.
So, and the way wrestling is now, opposed to the way it used to be, I believe different styles were represented. I always like to go back to 2006 when Gabe brought Dragon Gate to America for Ring of Honor. The style changed. I really, really believe Ring of Honor kind of like started these new trends, but nobody really gives Ring of Honor credit. But every time the style changed, it started with Ring of Honor and then it grew. So
I absolutely
definitely.
2006, Dragon Gate came to America. Before that, everybody was trying to be like Kenta Kobashi and all that stuff, right? Even all the Ring of Honor guys, like the Joes, Low-Keys and all those guys.
Yeah.
Then Dragon Gate came to America. Boom. They had that dope-ass six-man match. And then everybody started doing opening high spot, drop kick, hop, pop, pop, hit the ropes, dive. That became the standard for everyone. I don't care if you were
hot multi-man tag with these super high workers and stuff like that. That was the thing.
Yeah.
No, 100%. John, it's funny you say that. Ring of Honor, bro, like in so many ways, in just terms of where the industry has gone and what guys ended up making it, they really did dictate the pace. It was almost like what you saw on the mainstream was done on Ring of Honor 3 to 4 years prior. And even for me specifically, I stopped watching wrestling consistently for a couple of years in the early 2010s, but I was heavy into Ring of Honor a little bit before that, right? And it was so fascinating how I remember I checked WWE back out again, right? And I'm talking to a friend of mine, and I'm seeing this guy Cesaro. I'm like, isn't that Claudio Castagnoli? I'm seeing Sami Zayn. I'm like, yo, that's El Generico. I see Kevin Steen. Kevin Owens. I'm like, yo, that's Kevin Steen. And you know, Tyler Black with Seth Rollins. And it was crazy how many of those guys who were like the anchors of the brand at the time really became the guys who were now on the forefront of television wrestling. And they're the ones that like a new generations of people were getting exposed to, and then they influenced the next person. You talk about how like our generation basically came up on like the wrestling that was, you know, inspired off like Attitude Era WWE. And it's interesting you say that because that's the thing. Your frame of reference for wrestling is always what you're going to operate on. And so for a lot of people, they think that just the WWE of what 23 to 25 years ago, that's still emulated to this day in multiple ways, is like just, you know, what wrestling is. But at the time, that was a new version of wrestling to take it to a different direction and level. And that doesn't mean that that's all it has to be adhered to. And there was a whole multiple years of the business before that kind of had elements that have been taken to the wayside, you know, whether it just be, you know, no close fisted punches or how you shoot angles. I was just talking to Monty about this. I don't know, Gresh, I know you're on the show, but I don't know if you saw the angle with Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett. But I was talking about it. Yeah, I was talking about it with Monty, and I was like, man, that's a crazy angle, bro. Like, what? That's just crazy. And he was asking me, like, why do we not see some of this type of stuff on TV? And I'm like, it's because of priority with promoters and the people involved. And I think for them, it's just like they don't know nothing about the territories. You know what I mean? Like that's just not what they think of when they think of pro wrestling. You know, they approach it completely differently. So it doesn't even occur to them like that, you know, a guy walking in maybe and assaulting someone on television should result in like, you know, a committee, you know, deliberating on whether he should be punished, you know, in kayfabe or something like that. Like, it's just like you accept in wrestling that people just do crazy things and you just kind of go to the next show and they're there. Like, that's just kind of, that's how we accept the internal logic of wrestling. Cause that's how we came up. There's so many different things like that where it comes to, it really boils down to your frame of reference. So I guess that'll make me segue to what's your frame of reference? What's your preferred, I guess, type of wrestling and your influences and the things that kind of make you the Jonathan Gresham that we see today?
You know, it's funny. I was just like having this. It was a dream because I was definitely asleep, but I was kind of like filtering through like, why am I the way I am? And I think it was a lot. It might go back to music, you know. When I was younger, I was heavily into like hip hop, and then I saw like, I don't know what changed in me, but around age 12, like it was this group called Crime Mob. It was really big here in Atlanta, and I don't know, like their song came out, everybody was singing it, and everybody was doing exactly what they were saying in the song, and I was like, is this mind control? And so at that moment, I was like, I'm just gonna go this way now. So I just started to experiment with like different genres of music and stuff. And I think that's what kind of made me notice when everyone's doing something similar. So when I started wrestling, I noticed a lot of people were doing these particular things. And I was like, well, I need to gravitate away from that because how am I going to differentiate myself if like I'm doing the same thing everybody else is doing? And it's the same thing going on now. I think that's why when you watch television, you get a lot of the same content from program to program because it's kind of like the talents are essentially from independent to the mainstream. They're still trying to get the push. They're trying to get more bookings, trying to make more money. You know, and the only way to do that is to do what the top hot guys are doing. So let me do pretty much exactly what they're doing, you know, pretty much move for move or whatever, you know, and you don't really get a difference. And it's gotten to a point where I don't think fans even notice it.
No, they don't. They don't. John, here's my thing. I was talking to Monty about this. And how like we're in a business now where, you know, athleticism is at pretty much an all-time high because the business now favors people like that. And you have guys who pretty much are capable of doing everything under the sun. And so, you know, that coupled with the fact that it's a copycat business leads to just, you know, a lot of people who are basically, you know, essentially duplicates, so to speak. And you know, and I was talking with Monty about like how the business used to have people who were specialists and people who were like the best at one type of thing in wrestling. And I think that's almost preferable in my opinion, because you know, there's only going to be one Kenny Omega. You know what I mean? There's only going to be one Kenny. And so if you try to do like what he does and you're doing it as you know, and you're an approximation of what he does, to me, you don't stand out quite as well. So, you know, that's why, like, you know, Monty, you put over what Zack Sabre Jr., how like he's a specialist at just what he does. It helps him stand out more than just, you know, the run of the mill guy that's just trying to emulate, you know, the top people in the business.
And so, you know, to add on to this is also something I talk to like young guys that I work with, and they're all chasing the booking. They're chasing the money. I get it, right?
Yeah.
But like, I'm doing wrestling the way I want. That's the way I present. I'm not allowing someone else to influence what I do. So I think a lot of guys, I look at wrestling like lanes on a highway. You got the fast lane over here that has Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, the Young Bucks, like these guys that are running this new hot style. And you got everybody in wrestling trying to like get in the front of that line. Now, when I decided to be, you know, I thought to myself, I want to be a technical wrestler. At the time, there wasn't a lot of guys. Then I looked at, how many black guys are like known as technical wrestlers? Well, that's what I'm going to do because I like to do it anyway. So I got in that lane. At the time, you know, Danielson was out, McGinnis was out, but they were like so far ahead. It was like, so under them, who is it? There wasn't anybody. We were all Sabre, myself, and a couple other guys in the UK were all like climbing the ladder at the time. So when I talk to young guys, I'm like, you got to look at these lanes. Now, when you look at, and this is nothing derogatory against like Lucha Bros, but the Lucha Bros, right? Okay. They don't represent like actual Lucha Libre. They do American indie stuff.
Yeah. It's a striking, hard-hitting, independent style version of Lucha, so to speak.
Sure. I mean, to me, it's now the independent wrestling style. You know what I mean?
Indie wrestling now is a hybrid of like strong style and Lucha and, you know, everything.
Yeah,
you know, like,
it goes back, not to keep jumping, but it goes back to the 2006 Dragon Gate thing. Before that, 100%. You had like the Striker, which was low-key. You had like the submission specialist, which was Joe. You had the American technical wrestler, which was Danielson. You had the British technical wrestler, who was like Doug Williams. And so they were all had distinctive like traits and like characteristics. Then 2006, Dragon Gate came. Everybody wanted to be hybrid. Everybody was doing a super kick, a submission, a dive. Even people that's not supposed to be diving. So it's just like, that's when everybody became hybrids, man. And so now and today, when we're talking about these lanes, let me ask you this. To me, he was one of the most unique wrestlers. He might not have a great reputation, but how many guys are walking around right now wrestling like Necro Butcher?
I can't name you too many. You know,
I don't know of one. Not one. Then
He's
when you
very
look at
unique with what he did.
Yeah, dude. And I think something like that would definitely get over now. When you think about, there's two different styles of Lucha Libre. You got the Maestro, the way I like to say it, which is like the old school way of like Solar, Negro, or whatever. Then you got like the newer version of like the Have stuff, which is like the Jorge Riviera or like Skyda stuff, where it's more like quick and fluid. You know what I mean? But when you think about those two styles, how many guys in America are on national television using that style?
There's a distinct lack of traditional Lucha Libre on television in general. And
especially in general, to be honest. John's right, man.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You don't even realize it until you think about it. I like that you pointed out that you were a black technical wrestler, because you know, I think we are a very expressive people. We have, you know, I think that just in general, you know, we have so much to offer when it comes to personality and charisma and entertaining people historically, when it just comes to so many different mediums, right? And I think those innate traits are what's helped African Americans in pro wrestling and stuff. And you know, it's almost easier to kind of get in the door by making audiences laugh and you know doing you know, not to this, but like just doing the song and dance, so to speak. And so I think, you know, the norm for black wrestling is almost to just do the entertainment lane. You know what I'm saying? And most of
that's what the promoters accept easy.
Yeah.
Because they have never pushed somebody. Okay, you got like, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but it bothers me that like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, like it bothers me that you can have white guy number one, no character, be great,
just a good worker,
but then you got black guy saying, oh, he needs a character. But why? Why can't he just be a good wrestler?
Yeah. He has to make me laugh. He has to, do a dance.
He's got you got to be so much more than the other guy that's world champion. Doesn't have a character. He's good on the mic, sure, but he doesn't do anything but wrist locks, hammer locks, and some kicks.
Yeah.
But black guy that does the same thing, I need a fucking character. I need all this extra stuff. That's just the thing.
I totally agree, and I think just when it comes to you, John, and like discourse around you and your work, look, wrestling is subjective. Obviously, you can like what you like. You can like the type of wrestling you like, right? But I think you can objectively say like this guy's really skilled at what he's trying to do. And for me, I think sometimes some of the things that disparage you, it's hard to say directly that it's racially motivated, but I think people should just kind of look internally sometimes about like how they talk about wrestlers in terms of like what are you subconsciously or unconsciously doing when you look at certain people? You know what I mean? Because like, for example, like not to do anything, but like people will kind of use your size as a drag on you, right? And what I would say in my head is like, God damn, bro, we're in a business now. We're in 2022. Like I thought we were way past size. Number one. Number two, there's so many of y'all's favorites are smaller wrestlers, but you guys don't mind because they're so good at what they do. And then number three, it's just like, yeah, John's small, but bro, compared to a lot of other guys, of a similar size, look at how he's built. Like over the last few years, you've made a physical transformation to where you look like a freaking tank. You know what I'm saying? So it's just very interesting to see when you look at the discourse about that type of stuff.
It really is, because I got out of really interacting with the fans a few years back, and I realized they just want to spew whatever they believe as the gospel, and they don't understand that you go on Wikipedia, right? Mm-hmm. The stats on Wikipedia they take as the gospel, but the thing is that Wikipedia could have been made 7 years ago. Since then, of course, the person probably didn't grow in height, but his weight has changed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also, I've never been embarrassed of my size. So when wrestling promoters oh, what's your height? I was like, oh, 5'4". And they were like, you want me to say 5'7"? I was like, no, 5'4". It's why these people I can stand next to them, they're gonna freaking up.
It's crazy because that's rare to hear, because most people do go by kayfabe heights,
And then the fans believe it. So for example, I hear this thing a lot. I'm smaller than Rey Mysterio. I can assure you, I met the man on 3 occasions. We are the exact same height.
Look at that.
But for some reason, I'm 4'9" or whatever the fuck. My mom is 4'10". I can see on top of her head. So it's just ridiculous to what people want to believe. You know what I mean? And my Wikipedia might say I weigh 160 something, but I almost weighed 200 pounds a few months back. I dropped. I'm literally at 180 something right now. So it's just
yeah, I could see that. I when I just see you on TV, I'm like, dude, the guy's a freaking tank. He is literally a tank. He's 100% heavier than a couple guys who maybe have a few inches on him. And again, it's you named Rey Mysterio. It's Rey Mysterio is pretty much commonly accepted as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. The whole size being a knock on Rey, that shit died years ago.
But what helps with that though? I'm sorry, what are you saying, dude?
I said it adds to it, Rey Mysterio being his height, and even you to an extent. It's you say if you go up against someone who's 6'5" and you hit him with a suplex or something, it makes it infinitely more impressive as well. It can work in your favor. It's just that mentality of some fans is just so off, So,
the weird thing about it to me is just it's not I think size and shape and stuff when it comes to wrestling, it really should just depend on how you decide to approach your wrestling in terms of whether it's an issue. So for example, it's not your whole thing is I'm just gonna kill everyone in my path by being physically dominant. Your thing is just I'm more skilled than everybody, so I'm just gonna use my skill and my wit and my ability to just kind of get around whoever it is to beat opponents. You're not walking up to somebody like a Brody King and I don't know, knocking him out with a punch. You know what I'm saying? You'll dissect him physically until you're able to exploit something that will lead to your advantage to win a match. And people like Ian Riccaboni will get that over perfectly on commentary.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like the viewer, if you're actually watching the product, right? It's like Jonathan Gresham being a viable wrestler shouldn't be something that's implausible, which is why, again, just personally, I feel like a lot of people who maybe want to take pot shots at you or what you do, I feel like honestly, it's a lot of people that don't actually extensively watch some of what you were doing. Because like if you watched Pandemic Ring of Honor, where you were doing what you were doing, and Riccaboni's on commentary, basically being your tag team partner, so to speak, because he's breaking down. It's almost he's a layman almost, because it's like if you just don't get what Gresham is doing and he's doing it in front of you, and Riccaboni is breaking it down point by point, you shouldn't be sitting there by the end of it going like, how did he beat the big guy? Like, you know.
But see, the thing with Riccaboni is like he understands wrestling on a certain level, and like
he's a genius.
Ring of Honor of old was very like we were a tight knit group, so we had like moments to like really hang out. And I know it might happen like AEW and WWE and stuff, but like those rosters are really big, so like oftentimes somebody trying to get something over, is really difficult because they don't have that relationship with the announcers. And to me, I learned a long time ago that like the announcers are what kind of really help get you over. They can tell backstories and everything like that. But for me, and the fans say, oh, Gresham moved slow or whatever. It's like, yeah, I move slow because what I do, I want the commentators to be able to see it. And then when they see it, they can explain it and talk about it and give reason to it for the viewing audience that might not understand it. So like I oftentimes watch wrestling on TV and some of the guys are doing bing, bang, boom, boom, boom. And I hear the commentators stuttering over themselves after one spot finishes. They can't even talk about it because the next spot is now happening. So they just say something, oh, wow, that was cool. And it's just like, they're not commentating anymore. They're just popping. They're just reacting. So like, I want them to be able to help me get my story across by moving slow enough and selling so they can really like get over what I'm doing and explain it while it's in motion. That's just my psychology of like why I wrestle the way I wrestle. But like I can't get online, but I do give you basically tell you what I just said on text. It's just like some people get it, some people don't.
You're gonna look crazy just sending paragraphs to everybody in comments. You know what I mean? It's just,
that's what you do, Hollywood.
Yeah, that's what I do. See, I do the frontline trenches work, and I look like a madman. But it's just because I look, for me again. It's like, again, you can like what you like. Wrestling is subjective. No one's obligated to like a wrestling style that just doesn't appeal to them. But I do think that there are certain ways to take certain things in, and maybe you sometimes more context is needed, I think. And also, what I try to do when I go back and forth with individuals is not say like you're wrong for feeling this way, but just kind of maybe have you considered this and have you considered that, and just provide information that maybe can change somebody's perspective. John, one thing I want to ask you before we kind of get to like the really direct, relevant Ring of Honor stuff for this weekend. You are now going to be transitioning to wrestling more on television. Is it something that you are actively considering in terms of like how I should approach wrestling, how I should approach it within the space of television time? Because it's very different, getting 10 minutes on TV and having commercial cues versus, I have the open space to just go 25, 30, 45 minutes and do what I kind of want to do. How is your mentality different when it comes to that, when it comes to maybe dealing with an agent backstage or someone helping you put together the thing? What's your approach? And also, are you thinking about maybe this is a new TV audience that's never seen me before? What type of Jonathan Gresham am I trying to put out to that viewer who doesn't know me and is they're getting a small sample size of who John is, so to speak?
So this is what I meant earlier about me like just being transparent, but so to be honest with you, my debut on AEW with Lee Moriarty, and I did the no hand thing. I believe it was that day. Oftentimes there's like training earlier in the day from like guys like Regal and Dustin and guys like that. And so like I decided to, go and have a role. And I learned a lot that day. And I was never sat down and taught about television wrestling. I kind of like built my own theory on how it worked. And it was working for me for a while. I never had any complaints. And then I took one of the classes from Regal, and he explained camera angles, and it like a light bulb went off, and I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. So literally me going into the match with Lee Moriarty, that was more so on my mind than anything else, because it was like, okay, well, I want to get good at this television thing, but my goal has always been to get technical wrestling over to a television audience. And I believe in Ring of Honor, I was able to do that. But now coming here and trying to learn, Regal's new thing pretty much the day of or the week before or whatever I incorporated, like I wasn't, confident. I'm like, I'm never nervous. I'm like more so like excited, and it goes away and I'm like in the zone. But when I was out there, I was in my head during the entire Lee Moriarty match because I was worried about putting everything at the camera, going slow enough and stuff like that. And when I went to the back, the agents were talking to me about it. And a lot of what they were saying was literally only because I was trying to implement what Regal was teaching. And, when I started to pay attention to what everybody else was doing, I noticed that like they pay attention to the camera, but not really because they're all around. They're like, I don't have to pay attention to that. So then I told myself, from now on, I'm just going to wrestle like me, and just not worry about that, because I really think like the match took a hit because I was so in my head about trying to work these certain camera angles, and I really like kicked myself in the butt for trying to do that.
In my personal opinion, I thought it was a really successful TV debut because I thought that I really
same. That's all I mean. That's why,
bro. I thought it was effective in the sense that you kind of condensed your approach to match building within the space of TV time. And you did so also by doing, because I've seen all your matches with Lee Moriarty, right? And I think they're all great. This was very different than the other two because this was more like character oriented, because there was an angle that set it up and stuff, and you turned heel and all that kind of stuff. And frankly, I thought the roles were played extremely well. Like you were basically the, because here's the thing, Jonathan Gresham, when you turned heel, like I was kind of cautiously worried about like how you would approach this, right? I was like, I hope he doesn't end up doing like some, something that's not him. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want you becoming like a cartoon supervillain or something, right? But your heel work is very true to you, if that makes any sense. It's very consistent because it's like your approach to it was essentially like, I'm more skilled than this kid. I know this game better than him, so he's gonna be real emotional about this match. But I'm gonna just continue to just work my game, get him in my pace, and when I get him in my pace, there's nothing he could do about it, so I'm not tripping. Like I don't know if you were consciously considering this or it just happened naturally, but that's kind of how the story of the match played out, so to speak. And Lee was the emotional baby face, really trying to get at you because he's salty about what happened, and you're just like you're not really tripping over it, and you continue to just kind of suck him back into what you do. Like and it was almost like watching a basketball player who's just kind of pacing himself, and in the fourth quarter he's like, all right, it's closing time, because it was almost like in the final stretches, like when you started just kind of like, all right, it's go time. I know how to win wrestling matches, and that's just what happened. And so that's just me watching as a fan, watching just the match layout and how it built. And I thought that came across perfectly well on television, quite frankly. And I can only speak for myself, but you're talking about you're kicking yourself. I thought it was a successful TV debut. I enjoyed the match. I guess when I ask about like TV approach, I guess one of my questions is just like, are you going to be considering and thinking about like, maybe the people who, just want to see more Flash, for example, right? Want to see more of this because I don't think a lot of people realize, John, you know how to do a lot of stuff that you just choose not to do because you don't want to. You know what I mean? And so, like, I saw someone like post a GIF of you doing a Rana on Dark, like in shock that he knew how to do a Rana. I was like, yeah, he knows how to do a Rana. Like, yeah, yes, he, And so, I guess my question is just like, are you gonna are you considering like the fan who maybe is just, I guess, doesn't get you, and maybe adding more pizzazz, I guess, to what you do, and how much of that are you weighing in with what's right for you, I guess, so to speak.
So wrestling, I'm kind of antiquated in the sense of like, I believe heel and face should exist. And I feel like if you're a heel, your job is to make sure the face is over. You should never compete with the face for pops. That's in my mind how I would build a heel versus face match. So if I'm wrestling a guy that is not as athletic as me, why would I do moonsaults and shooting star presses? It's just like I'm outshining him now. So it's just like a lot of things in my mind, if you tell me I'm a heel, now I have this mental block saying I can't do these things. But then when I watch programs, you have heels doing really cool stuff. It's just like, well, they're not really heels anymore because they're getting pops and oohs and ahs. Like, in my mind, the heel's job is to take away what the fans want to see.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so once the face gets rocking and rolling, the heel does something underhanded to take it away. So like, and I believe my take to, using technical wrestling, slowing the pace down, people don't want to see things slow down. They want to see it sped up. So if I always switch the gears and slow it down, then they're going to encourage the face, thus getting him over more. You know what I mean? So like that's my theory, but like it's kind of like the promoters. Are they listening to the fans, or are they understanding that this individual understands how to be a heel? You know what I mean? Because now wrestling has evolved so much that I think it was something that WWE said where it's like, oh, people aren't always good and they aren't always bad. That fucked up everything.
When we started blurring the lines and shit, right?
Once that happened, it was like that could be done with like a couple of people, but there needs to be people that are bad and then people that are good. Because that's if you watch any successful Disney movie, there's always a villain and a good guy. You know what I mean? Now most wrestling is face versus face, and everything is pop, 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 pop. So
John, it's crazy because like I argue this with people because I remember like when people tried to argue this with me about there's no need for a face heel dynamic. I totally philosophically disagree because it throws off so many dynamics of just the art of pro wrestling, and I think in a vacuum it works, but like I don't want wrestling to just be one big circle jerk in the sense of just like sometimes wrestling, a lot of times it'll just be two guys you like doing cool things that you like, and the crowd is chanting both these guys, which to me, I'm gonna tell you this right now, John, I hate the both these guys chant. You know why? Because that means nobody is making you feel strong enough or passionate enough that you're rooting for them to beat the other guy. You just want to see people beat each other up. And if this is simulated combat, why do you want to see that? Shouldn't you want to see your guy overcome the other guy? Both these guys in Fight Forever, it just feels like one big circle jerk, which again, in an independent show or like a PWG, it totally works, right? It makes sense. But I don't think that the entire game needs to be that, and I think it's dangerous and tricky to take it in that direction, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, sure, it's too late, but to touch on what you're saying, like when I was coming up, it was always preached that wrestling shows are supposed to be like a circus, supposed to be a little bit of everything, but that's a lie. It doesn't happen anymore. Everything's the fucking same. So like the thing is like this is going to evolve to what point?
Yeah.
Like we've gotten to the point where like promotions are now aiding people in being ADHD. You know what I mean? Like we go from freaking a singles match to all of a sudden you're in a goddamn crazy fucking whatever the fuck gotta kill each other match within 2 weeks. So it's just like there's no build to anything anymore. Like and the thing is like if
value stories.
I'm sorry.
That's it, and that in turn devalues stories, It
does, but like I don't want to say everything needs to be this way, but there needs to be a little bit of everything. And essentially like at the end of the day, people just need to listen and give a chance to other stuff. There's so many really good wrestlers that aren't getting an opportunity to like help a promotion grow because the promotion is just tunnel vision that this is the only way wrestling works now. But there's other ways wrestling can work. I have this theory that like eventually wrestling is going to become subscription based, kind of like Netflix, Hulu, and stuff like that. And there's going to be we present this. Okay. This is wrestling, and then this is wrestling over here. It's just going to be like comedy, sports presentation, whatever the fuck that is, and then like just different stuff. Like to me, that's what it's getting to. I hope it gets that way, because then certain people have places to go, because right now the pure technical and classic style wrestler is getting suppressed. Like there's only a few of us that are getting the time of day of like being on television, or like even just getting an opportunity to make a living. Everything is this, but we keep going in this direction. When are we going to revert back to where things are safer? I keep hearing people getting hurt, concussions, broken arms, all this stuff. God. Like, it's because the style is just not sustainable to work every week that way. And you're talking about, think about the guys back in like the 80s and stuff. They used to work loops and be on the road for 14 days. I was just talking to Teller the other day about it. They were on the road for 14 days with 3 days off. Imagine if they wrestled the way we wrestle today. Their careers would be 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. It is crazy to see, and people get defensive when you say maybe style might be a reason for some of these injuries. But I do think it's something where, at least if nothing else, is worth considering. The fact that, like, think about this, John. Like, just for me coming up, I really started watching wrestling heavily in the early 2000s. A no DQ match or a street fight or a ladder match. These are things that you saw, really sparingly and on pay-per-view as blow-offs. And we've kind of gotten used to seeing them like pretty much every week on TV. And I understand it's a ratings game, and you're trying to keep people, again, ADHD, overstimulation, excited, and that kind of thing. But I do think that's something to consider. It's like, if the boys are like literally killing themselves in matches like this, like way more frequently, maybe we should look into how can we keep our audiences engaged without putting that type of workload on our talent. You know what I'm saying? So
it might be too late, man, because there's like a whole like demographic of people that only view wrestling the way it is now. Like, I don't think they will accept wrestling in, for lack of a better way to say, a slower, lesser form. You know what I mean? Like, it would have to evolve forward instead of reverting, this way. So, like, I don't know, maybe like guns come into play next. Start shooting.
So here's my thing, John. That's why for me, and this is a purely just me opinion, subjective thing, right? I pretty much enjoyed AEW from the start, but like, because of like I like a lot of different kinds of wrestling. I do like old school wrestling. I like technical wrestling and stuff like that. And I thought that there was a few stylistic holes and voids in the product at the beginning because of the personnel. And I was really happy that over the last few years, there's been additions to the roster to kind of add more variety. Because to me, wrestling is better when there's a variety and all the bases are covered, so to speak, right? So when they added more big men, it was like, great, now you have some big men who could do this, and you could get new dynamics in matches rather than just everybody's just doing everything, right? Then they started adding, FTR helped kind of bring in maybe some of the old school 80s Southern style of wrestling into the television. CM Punk, I really valued how Punk, he's very much, old school minded and Bret Hart oriented with how he approaches wrestling. And so all these different types of signings added new elements to the product. And there's an increase in technical wrestlers. And I could tell just with how Tony's using people like Daniel Garcia that he has an appreciation of technical wrestling, at least at some level, And that's where it leads me to you now, and how I think you can be an asset to the brand, whether it's Ring of Honor, whether it's AEW. I guess my question to you is, what have your interactions with Tony Khan been like? What sense do you get about how he feels about like your vision of pro wrestling, so to speak, and where you guys stand?
To be honest, I've not really talked to him. I don't know what he thinks about me. Yeah, I've had like very short conversations with him. Like when I say short, I mean short. So I don't know. I would hope that he values me. I don't know them. So we'll find out in the coming weeks, months, I guess.
Sure, for sure. I'd imagine since he kept you around, he appreciates what you do to some level. So I do hope you guys are able to kind of, talk about some stuff and see where that goes. I guess if that's the case, then who's behind the decision to kind of link you up with Tully Blanchard and the Tully Blanchard Enterprise stable? Like, how did that come to be?
I arrived on TV one day, and then I was told that's what I was doing, and I was like, okay. I don't know. I don't know if it was super thought through. I don't know anything. All I know is that's what I was told. And I was like, all right, let's make it work.
That's TV wrestling, man. It seems like it's kind of just like it's on the fly. You show up, you told something, you do it, and you go from there. It seems
that's what I hear, man. That's how TV wrestling is.
It's crazy. It seems like you got to get going soon, John. So I guess my last real thing I kind of want to get to is you're taking on Claudio Castagnoli this Saturday, Death Before Dishonor, Ring of Honor World Championship, main event of the first really official pay-per-view of Ring of Honor under Tony Khan. What do you say to people who assume that you are walking into this event to just hand Claudio Castagnoli the Ring of Honor Championship?
Is this live or when is this coming out?
This is recorded.
When will you release it?
Monty, what you thinking?
Possibly tomorrow, before like early tomorrow, maybe. It depends, I guess. Let's say it's coming out before. We'll say it's coming out.
We'll get it before the show goes live.
I will say you have to watch to find out.
John, we appreciate you. I'm a big believer in what you do. I wish you the best of luck in this new Ring of Honor. I hope this ends up being a great opportunity for you to kind of increase your profile and get more people to, I guess, understand and appreciate what you do. I hope you continue to receive solid opportunities under this new umbrella. I wish Ring of Honor nothing but the best, and by extension, you and what you guys do again. And again, I really just hope everything works out for you, and I hope this totally works. I think you and Claudio are going to smash it because you guys are both sensational wrestlers. I think the show in general is going to be tremendous because the card is great. The card is going to be great. John, thank you so much for giving us this time. We really appreciate it, man. We really appreciate it. So thank you, sir. God bless you. And best of luck with everything. Jordan, thank you for giving us time.
Go get your bags. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was not 20 minutes, guys. That was 47 minutes. We're literally
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Let's see if we miss this flight. But wait, can I say one thing? Because I've been thinking about this. Do you want to be in here while I say this?
What do you like? I don't know.
So I get a lot of shit on Twitter for defending John about stuff. But I really feel passionately about body shaming in general. Yeah. And so let me leave you guys with a think piece, and you don't have to answer this at all. Sure. Why is it that when people like Eddie Kingston, Adam Cole, Deonna Purrazzo are body shamed online, everybody jumps to their defense? But when someone like John is ridiculed for something that he has absolutely no control over, everybody piles on. Mm-hmm. That's my thought.
It's very interesting. It's something that I think everybody listening should consider. And
think about it.
The things that he can change about his body composition, he works very hard to affect and better, which is just his physique. So it is interesting that you brought that up. Jordan, thank you so much. John, we appreciate you. You guys, hopefully you guys don't miss your flight. Thank you for giving us this time.
No problem. Thank you guys, man. Be safe.
All right, guys. All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks. Yeah, man. That was So there it was, Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham, which was brought to you by our good friend Backup Hangman, right? Yeah,
yes, sir.
Yeah, man, it was good stuff. Definitely for Dishonor, Ring of Honor pay-per-view this Saturday. Claudio versus Jonathan Gresham, Wheeler Yuta versus Daniel Garcia, Samoa Joe's back. Of course, FTR versus the Bristows 2 out of 3 falls. It's genuinely shaping up like. For me personally, and my enjoyment, it's got a good chance of being card of the year, depending on, of course, how it plays out, because you never know. But from a lineup point of view, it is genuinely like one of my favorite lineups that Tony Khan has ever put on. So, yeah, man.
Absolutely. I honestly, it felt like we could have went for 2 hours. The way
easy
talking about wrestling. I could feel you could feel Jordan kind of being like, yo, we got to get out of here, which is, I mean, I totally get, I appreciate the time they gave him, but it really did just talking to John about wrestling and how he thinks about wrestling and approaches wrestling. This is super fascinating to pick his brain on a bunch of things. I think the biggest reveal of anything is just that he, by his admission, doesn't really have much of a relationship with Tony so far. So I wonder if that's primarily based on just,
just a busy guy, isn't it?
Yeah, just busyness.
Tony's all over the place at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Like it seems like he has so many hats he has to wear and so much to do that it's almost hard to kind of really communicate. But I do hope for John's sake that he really does have a good role, even if he does lose to Claudio. I do hope that he's
But after that answer.
Yeah.
That was a long ass pause, bro.
It was like frighteningly like, okay, how do I not spoil this match, but like not get myself in trouble? You know what I mean? So, which I totally get. I kind of put him on the spot with like a really spicy one on the way out. So, yeah. I very good chance Claudio wins the championship, but I do hope that John, I hope that he can forge a very viable role for himself on the programming. And I do hope that he can show more of his. I hope he can show more of what he's able to do, because I do think that we've gotten to a point now where people are starting to kind of underrate what he does. It went from people just kind of being like, "Oh, I'm not a fan of the style," to literally like just people shitting on a guy who's honestly a great wrestler, man. Like he's a great
wrestler. Tremendous. Like we said earlier, he's a specialist, man, and the industry doesn't really have enough of him. And one of the things I wish I would have mentioned to him is like, as well as being a specialist, that comes with frailties and weaknesses. And obviously with Jonathan, like we see pretty much every time he has a match, like his weakness is striking, He's got a weak chin, as the commentators always put over. That's just a brilliant storytelling piece that he has and can add to his game. And that's what comes with being a specialist like Gresham, like a Zack Sabre Jr., like, whether that's a Lucha who's just, he's like Vikingo, for example. Vikingo, he's a flyer. He's going to do all this stuff, but I'm sure if he came against a powerhouse or something, he'll just get ragged around for a bit, and it would be
and that leads to different dynamics in matches. It's why he touched on it, and I kind of brought it up a little bit more. It's why you want variety in the types of wrestlers that you employ, because you get completely different matches depending on who you're putting against guys, and that's just really interesting. Brody King versus Darby Allin was not the same as Brody King and Jon Moxley. And it's because of the way that these guys wrestle. And you throw Brody against John, John isn't going to try to just go balls to the wall on him like Darby did. He's going to try to dissect him. And that's a totally different dynamic, which if commentary, does their part to get it over, it's going to be just as interesting.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
I'm glad he was able to give us his time. I made the sacrifice to kind of get this out of the way before I go to work, because it's an amazing opportunity. You know what I mean? Hopefully you can get this out before the pay-per-view.
I'm gonna try. Definitely.
I wonder how much you kind of clean up or chop through. Probably not too much, because his answers were pretty great. And they're very enlightening and interesting. And I know we didn't really get too much I guess like spicy headline stuff until like the end, but for me, that's not
what it ever was going to be,
and that's not the goal. I wasn't really trying to exploit John. I was trying to I was really just trying to pick his brain.
Just talk with him.
Because I had a vested interest in just hearing where he was with certain things before this event. So yeah, man, it was great stuff. Monty, I'm happy that you were able to set this up. I probably should have gave you some time to ask some stuff yourself. I apologize.
No, I was just letting you go with it. Like, literally, the only question that I had that I may have asked him was one that you already asked him towards the end about, like, like how about all the hybrids and specialists and stuff like that. So that was the only thing I really had to ask him, and he got asked anyway, because it's an easy thing to ask him, because that's where the conversation led naturally anyway. And like I said at the start, it was like, you was going to lead this interview, and, I was here like, kind of as an on-screen producer who just kind of was just nodding through the whole thing. It was a good conversation to kind of be a fly on the wall for, and that's kind of what I wanted it to be. It's just like you two having like this real natural organic conversation just about wrestling and styles and, not, I don't know, like, what are your predictions for Saturday? And where how
like,
did you get
how
into
did
wrestling?
you get into the
Who do
business?
you know?
Who trained you?
Yawn.
It's
So,
like, look, all that stuff you can Google. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can Google where he trained, when he started. But actually hearing how he right now on July 22nd, 2022, how he thinks about A, B, and C, that's actual unique information that I think is much more interesting.
But we'll probably need to get out of there now.
Absolutely.
Keep this thing under a nice hour. Keep it nice
for
and
sure,
tight.
for sure.
And so this Saturday, Death Before Dishonor, Ring of Honor, first pay-per-view back under the newly rebranded Ring of Honor under Tony Khan's leadership. Claudio Castagnoli versus Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham for the strap. Could go either way. Like I've already ran through some of the big matches on the card. It's going to be a great time. Thanks again to Jonathan Gresham for his time. Jordan Grace for being great with us the whole time as well. And thank you to you, Mr. Hollywood Backup Hangman, for being the plug in all of this. And this was our second interview that we're uploading, but it's the first one that we've actually done hands on ourselves. And the first one kind of fell in our lap sort of things. And I think we've done a pretty okay job. Obviously, we'd love anyone who watches this feedback and anything like that. And I hope you all enjoyed it. And we will be back at some point over the weekend. We'll probably do a Death Before Dishonor review show, to be honest. So we'll see if Jonathan Gresham's still world champion by then. And man, thanks again, Backup Hangman, and we'll catch you guys very soon.